When you hear the name Rothschild, you just think money, power. For over 200 years, it's been a shorthand for a kind of wealth that's almost impossible to wrap your head around. So, how did one family go from the cramped streets of a German ghetto to becoming the absolute masters of global finance? Let's get into it.
And look, that's not some modern exaggeration. This was written way back in 1836. It shows you just how much power people thought they had, even then, at their absolute peak. They weren't just seen as bankers. They were seen as the people behind the curtain, advising kings and shaping nations. The big question is, how on earth did they get there? All right, so to really understand the reality of this family, we have to peel back all the layers of myth and legend and start with the name itself. And you might be surprised that for a name that sounds so powerful, its origins are actually incredibly humble. That's right. The family name doesn't come from some noble title or a grand castle. It literally comes from the German for "at the red shield." It was just the sign that hung on their family house in the Frankfurt Jewish ghetto. It's a pretty powerful reminder that this entire financial empire was built quite literally from the ground up. And this is a really important distinction to make. While the name is incredibly famous, it's also a common Ashkenazi surname. So when we talk about the Rothschilds, the financial dynasty that changed the world, we are talking specifically about the descendants of one man, Mayer Amschel Rothschild of Frankfurt.
Okay, so let's meet the man himself, Mayer Amschel Rothschild. He is the architect of it all. His story is basically a masterclass in pure strategy, taking him from the crowded confines of the ghetto all the way to the lavish courts of European princes. Just let that sink in for a minute. This was his world, a house just 11 feet wide crammed with over 30 people. When you picture that stark reality, the scale of what he and his family would go on to build is, well, it's just staggering. And his climb was no accident. It was incredibly calculated. He starts with an apprenticeship to learn the trade. Then he pivots to a really smart niche, dealing in rare coins, something that would catch the eye of the wealthy. And it worked. It got him noticed by the nobility, and boom, by 1769, he lands the crucial title of court factor, a financial agent for a powerful crown prince. The foundation was laid. But here's where Mayer's true genius really shines. It wasn't just in his own personal success. No, it was in his plan for the next generation. A plan symbolized by 5 arrows, one for each of his 5 sons, which became the very core of their family's strategy. So here was the master plan. Mayer sent his 5 sons out to the 5 key financial centers of Europe. Amschel held down the fort in Frankfurt, Solomon went to Vienna, Nathan to London, Karl to Naples, and James to Paris. You see what was happening? This wasn't just opening new branches. It was creating the world's first truly international bank. And this was the principle, the glue that held it all together. Unity, integrity, industry. By working together, sharing information instantly, and supporting each other, the 5 brothers could operate with a speed and a scope that their rivals just couldn't touch. That family unity, that was their secret weapon. With this unmatched network in place, the Rothschilds didn't just participate in 19th century finance. They basically defined it. They funded governments, they financed wars, and they literally built the infrastructure of our modern industrial world. And if you want to put their power into perspective, get this. In the single year of 1815, they supplied 9.8 million pounds, an astronomical sum worth many hundreds of millions today, just to finance Britain's allies against Napoleon. They weren't just involved, they were absolutely critical to the war effort. And that leads us to the legendary Waterloo story. The family's private network of couriers was so fast that it delivered news of the victory to Nathan Rothschild in London a full day before the government even knew. Now, the popular story is that he made a killing on that secret info. The reality is even smarter. He knew peace would make British government bonds soar, so he bought them up, and later sold them for a massive 40% profit. And their influence wasn't just in government finance. Oh no. Their money was the lifeblood for some of the most game-changing projects of the era. We're talking about funding massive railway systems across Europe, the Suez Canal project, and even helping to launch mining giants like Rio Tinto and De Beers that are still around today. So, what does that kind of success look like? Well, it looks like a fortune that is just hard to even imagine. By the end of the 1800s, the family had built or bought at least 41 palatial estates, chateaux on a scale that often blew past what actual royal families were living in. Just wow. So, what happened to this colossal empire? How does a dynasty like this adapt to the crazy political and economic roller coaster of the 20th and 21st centuries? Well, the original five-arrow structure had to evolve. The Frankfurt and Naples branches actually closed by the early 1900s because of a lack of heirs and just the shifting political landscape. The remaining powerhouses in Britain and France eventually merged and restructured into the modern, corporate financial groups that operate across the globe today. And their interests today have diversified in a big way. While financial services are still the core, the family name is now also tied to world-class winemaking, major philanthropic work, real estate, and energy investments. They've definitely expanded their portfolio, to say the least. You know, their legacy in philanthropy is just profound. Baron Edmund de Rothschild was a key supporter of early Zionism, and the family's money helped build some of Israel's most important institutions, like the Knesset and the Supreme Court. And beyond that, their legendary art collections have been donated to public museums all over the world for everyone to see. Now, of course, with that kind of incredible wealth, you're going to attract conspiracy theories. It just comes with the territory. A big one is that the family profited from starting wars. But as historian Niall Ferguson points out here, that theory is pretty flawed. By the mid-19th century, their fortune was all tied up in government bonds. As the ultimate insiders, they needed peace and stability to succeed. Chaos and conflict were actually bad for business. So when you step back and look at this journey, it's just incredible. From a single house marked by a red shield to a global dynasty that bankrolled empires and built the modern world, their story is this complex mix of ambition, strategy, and adaptation. And it leaves us with a big question. What is the true legacy of a family that didn't just make money, but completely remade the system itself?